Good afternoon, folks. I hope you're having a great Easter. I certainly am. I've found out some fantastic news. I'm probably going to get told off by my legal team, but I have to share this. I think it's not ambiguous at all what's happened. So I've got to tell you, I'm so excited. As you may know, some 4 years ago, I started action against the DWP because they had this dreadful scheme called direct payments, which allowed utility companies to help themselves to 25% of people's benefits. We weren't asked for our consent. We weren't asked if the amount was even owed. We weren't given the option to have better debt options. We weren't asked if we could afford it. It was just the utility companies just took the money, and the DWP let it through. So I experienced a couple of times where, well, the one that really galvanised me was some years ago where E.ON took £80.80 a month from me. The problem was the amount was inflated because they'd installed a faulty meter. I had to go to the Ombudsman to get that verified and be vindicated yet again. But then they continued to take £80.80 a month, which is a substantial amount of money to anybody. They continued to take that for a year and a half, even when I'd moved supplier, so I had no current usage. And I didn't owe them anything, I didn't have any arrears. But the DWP refused to stop the payments, and E.ON kept cocking up and not stopping the payments. Because the thing is with utility companies, it's actually sorry about the bell ringing, that's one of my cats bringing his toy in. But it's actually in the interest of utility companies to make these mistakes, because if they get caught out and they have to pay the money back, and then that's all consumer law demands of them. But they even get to keep the interest that they make from our money sat in their bank accounts. So it's in their interest to accidentally, on purpose, make mistakes. So anyway, that was the background of why I brought the case to court to change the law, because I just didn't want other people to be put through what I'd been put through. You know, it was the kind of thing where, the first time I knew that they'd taken the money from my benefit, I was hysterical, because it then meant I didn't have enough money left to pay my rent. My rent is my most important payment. And actually, being on terms with my landlady is the most important debt relationship I have, because she keeps my rent low for me. And also she allows me to live here. Many people, many landlords don't allow people with pets. They don't allow people who aren't working. So it's really important that I pay my rent. And wow, I'll tell you what, my landlady is just such a lovely, decent person. I'm really blessed to have her. So, I'm filling up just talking about it. Right, and excuse the state of the house. You see, yes, I've not got flooring down. I've been trying to save up for several years and it's just not happened. Anyway, it's quite a process. First of all, there was a judge threw our case out without even letting us present it at court. But then it went, we had to have permission to appeal, and we had a lovely judge, Deputy High Court Judge Peter Marquand, and he granted us permission to appeal. So we then went to the High Court, and thanks again to Mr. Justice Kavanagh. He ruled in our favour that it was unfair the way that the DWP had interpreted this scheme, that the scheme was supposed to be what's in the best interests of the benefit claimant. And the idea was that the scheme was to stop people being cut off. Ironically, the biggest abusers of the scheme are water companies. But by law, they're not allowed to cut people off. So they actually shouldn't even be using the scheme. And it's funny as well how my water company, Severn Trent, they made sure that they were in proceedings as an interested party. And you should have heard some of the really unpleasant things that their barrister had to say. But anyway, we had a couple of fantastic judges, and Mr. Justice Kavanagh ruled that no, the scheme was unfair. There's a thing called common law fairness. My brilliant silk, Jenny Richards, she realised that part, that was how the law was being broken, etc. And she fantastically argued our case on that. So the result of that win, that was September last year, was that the judge says, no, you can't just allow these payments to go through without actually verifying if they are in the benefit claimant's best interest. So you need to contact them, you need to do a load of work to find out. So after that, the DWP actually put a freeze on direct payments. They put a freeze in on October last year. So that was good. Then, and I actually even because there was the possibility they might appeal, which is just throwing more good public money after bad. Because you should have seen that the first hearing, the amount of DWP lawyers on the video hearing watching, that's the taxpayer is paying for all of those. The taxpayer was paying for all of the DWP fighting this indefensible scheme. And the taxpayer was also paying for my legal aid to fight it. So it was just ridiculous that the DWP tried to defend this scheme that was all about just benefiting utility companies at the expense of benefit claimants in the end. I think the scheme was started with good intentions. It started about 10 years ago, I think, by a Labour government, ironically. But the DWP misinterpreted what it should have been about. The thing with laws is it's not just about, loopholes and that. The thing about laws is there's the spirit of the law and what's intended. And how the DWP actually operated the scheme was not what was intended. But anyway, the DWP froze the payments, and I realised that there was actually a better option for everybody, because the results of the win at the High Court would have meant the DWP would have had to employ thousands more staff. It would have cost millions of pounds to implement the changes demanded, but the scheme still remained flawed, because it still allowed some random DWP employee to decide what's in our best interests. And that's outrageous. We've not been declared mentally incompetent. It should be our decision. And it's really distressing, actually, when you don't have much money and the decisions about how you spend your money is taken out of your hands. Clearly it's not in people's interests to prioritise utility arrears over keeping a roof over their heads, paying their rent, or buying food. But that's the decision that the way the scheme was being run could happen. So I actually, in my press release that Bindman's put out on the 28th of September, I actually made a suggestion. Sorry, I'm rummaging through paper to find it for you. So I said, and you can look this up online, it's the 23rd of September. I said, I'm over the moon about this judgment and can't thank my awesome legal team enough. The fact that the DWP now need to seek representations from benefit claimants before making the decision to deduct money from their benefits is the very least they should have been doing. However, this scheme remains inherently flawed, as it still gives decision makers the power to determine how other people's money is spent. There is a solution that would stop this injustice and also save the government the expense of employing extra staff to try to determine the interests of benefit claimants. I propose that this legislation be changed from interests of the benefit claimant to if the benefit claimant consents. I invite Chloe Smith, the new Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, to discuss this proposal with me, so it's a win-win for all. So that was on my press release, and I also followed it up by a letter. The letter I emailed to Chloe Smith, and actually it actually went via my solicitor to the DWP legal team. But some months later, they sent a reply saying, no, not their exact words, obviously, but they said, no, we're not going to pass it on, which is just outrageous that a lawyer is refusing to pass on a letter to their client. So it was an unelected legal bod made the decision for the government. So anyway, but because I suspected my letter might not be passed on, I also emailed it direct to Chloe Smith, who was at the time the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, and also to my MP's office. I rang them, told them I was going to be sending it and asked them to forward it. So I sent those letters off on the 28th of September. Of course, didn't receive a reply or anything. But anyway, then we found out that the DWP was appealing our High Court win. So the date set for that is the 25th and 26th of this month. But last night, I read an article in the Mirror stating that, let me find it, stating that, it says the DWP stopped the practice of direct payments in October last year, coincidentally just after my High Court win. However, the DWP says that before a new deduction or an increase is made, the energy supplier must have the claimant's consent first. And energy companies will also need someone's consent before the request can be sent to the DWP, just as I suggested. So I'm absolutely, if they acknowledge that the idea came from me or not, I don't care. Well, I do a little bit, but fair dues. I think they'll want to try and take the credit, but whatever. I'm just so happy. This scheme affected 250,000 people a year, and it's been going for 10 years. So 2.5 million people a year. And quite a few of those people would have been put through the same misery that I was. And the thing that worries me is that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing can drive people to suicide. Or even it could have made people homeless. So it seems like, and everything needs to be verified, and my legal team, like I say, they are going to be cross with me that I've not checked first. But it seems that, if it's by consent that people have the choice and we can say no, we again have the same rights as everybody else. I'm over the moon. I'm also happy that this change means it's going to save the DWP millions, because much as I despise the action of the DWP at times, they're paid for by taxpayers' money. So I'm happy it saved taxpayers' money. And also, we all know water companies are polluting rivers and seas, because they'd rather, it seems to me, in my opinion, that they'd rather pay fines than actually protect the environment. And electricity companies, well, we all know that everybody's struggling to pay massive fuel bills, and they're making record profits. So I think everybody will join me in knowing that the cherry on the top of all this is that the gravy train that utility companies have been on for 10 years is coming to an end. They might be out of pocket, which I'm sure we're all going to cry about. So I'm over the moon. So yeah, it's great news. And I'm just about to because you might not know, I just can't put up with stuff that's wrong. I'm also fighting the vet giant IVC at court. I've got to do court documents, but on top of that, I'm actually fighting the entire vet giant industry, who have made it so that now 4 out of 10 pet owners can't afford to take their pets to the vets because they're hiking prices, pressure selling, setting sales targets. So I've got a campaign devised about that. It's all roughed out. It's going to involve a parliamentary petition, a link to the Competition and Markets Authority, so they investigate proposed legislation. And we've got a fantastic campaign name, logo, got the website, and there's going to be a ton of information on there so that we can change the law. And that's not just going to help 250,000 people a year, that will help all UK pet owners stop people suffering because of lack of funds, and also it's going to stop pets suffering when their owners can't afford to pay extortionate prices. And my fantastic and supportive friend San has just lent me enough money to trademark our campaign name and logo. So I'm just going to go and do that. And a big thank you to Toby from Free Speech Union, who gave me some advice on that. He's been a real gentleman. So it's a weird weekend with so much happening. You know, I was at court last week. I was extremely upset about the way it was handled, but I actually beat the fancy pants IVC barristers on the important claim. So that's huge. Everything seems a bit surreal. You know, this DWP case I've been working on for I think 4 years, and it's not for any money. It's not for a penny. I think it was the Severn Trent barrister who tried to present us at court that because I wasn't asking for any money, that was somehow a bad thing. I think he totally missed the point that there are some people who just do things on principle and for other people. So, yeah, and thank you. I keep mentioning them. You know, my legal team have been great. That's Emma Varley, Tom Royston and Jenny Richards, but also Deepak, especially Linda and Bob, and Ruth London from Fuel Poverty Action. They've been absolute superstars. So thank you, Patrick Butler, as well, from The Guardian, who originally covered the case. Thank you. Look what some ordinary people have managed to achieve. I'm really, really, really happy. All right, thanks.